अच्छा बेटा, हमें क्वेश्चन नंबर 8 सॉल्व करना है इसका। और इस क्वेश्चन के अंदर मैं आपको गाइड करता जाऊंगा कि आपने लूप कैसे लगाना है, विच इज़ योर मेन क्वेश्चन दैट सर आई एम नॉट एबल टू इम्प्लीमेंट दिस। सो लेट्स स्टार्ट दिस। दिस इज क्वेश्चन नंबर 8। क्वेश्चन नंबर, अच्छा, this is question number 8. Question number 8 is saying that there is a teacher who is designing a program to perform simple syntax checks on programs written by a student. ठीक है, एक टीचर है who is designing a program to perform simple syntax checks on program written by a student, and students programs are submitted as text files which are known as project files. A project may contains blank lines. Student are submitted as text files which are known as project files, and a project file may contain blank lines. The teacher has defined the first module as follow. Now, whenever if you have a question of text file into your paper, that means that right here you need to work on your file handling part. Means that I'm going to have all of the concepts of file handling into my mind. That first of all, I'm going to open file, I'm going to add not end of file, and I'm going to close file. So one thing is common. The second question is that, sir, what loop I'm going to apply here? So for applying the loop, first of all, you are going to check that what are your question requirements. Like it says that write a pseudocode module for check file. The first name that says states that it takes the name of an existing project file as a parameter of type string. It takes the name of an existing project file as a parameter of type string and returns true if the file is valid. It contains at least 10 non-blank lines, otherwise returns false. That means that this is an example of a function because it is returning a value. So two things that are confirmed here. This is a function, this is a file handling. And what I need to do in this question, I need to take the name of existing file of type string and return to if the file is valid. And it should be containing at least 10 non-blank lines, otherwise false. This means that the loop that I'm going to use right here is if, then, else, and if, because it is already stated into the question. So the question should not arise right here that which loop should I use. For example, if it is written right here that you need to complete that task until this is the value. Like if I give you an example of the question that we have performed earlier, it was stating that your file should must be keeps on going until you have received that constant value of that terminator. So what I did was that I applied the loop of repeat until in the last question I'm referring to. In the last question, what happens that you applied that if the end of the file has this terminator, that means that I'm going to end the value. So that means that at that time you were using repeat until, but right here they have only given you a situation. So you are only going to use if, then, else, and if. So I hope I'm clear. If you have any queries, you can ask me. So let's complete this as well. First of all, I'm going to start this by giving a value of a function. The name of the function is check file, and what is it doing? It is have in parameter take the name of an existing file project, such as this file as your string. And one thing is also sure is that it is returning a boolean value. Boolean value because it is stated into the question like true and false. In my declaration part, I'm going to declare that Now returns true if the file is valid. I'm going to declare here my valid as my boolean as true or either false. The second thing I'm going to declare here is takes the name of an existing project file as parameter, returns to the file is valid. It should contain at least 10 non-blank lines. Lines की बात हो रही है. Lines, or you can take this lines as your strings, because into this program we are going to work on this. In the third part, it is stating that it should be at least 10 non-blank lines. That means that I also need to have a count value. This is going to be of an integer. Now you are going to start your program by having the count value is 0, setting your valid value as false. And since this is a question of file handling, in file handling, the first thing that you are required to do is you are required to open your file. And what is your file name? It is this file. It is this file for read. And similarly, while not EOF, this is must. Whenever there is a question of file handling, you have to open it and you need to write that while not you reach to the end of that file and your file name and if your valid is equals to false. That means you have to read file, this file, and whatever is in your this line. Now you can see that I'm only using the simple loop, which is if then else and if. So if this line is not equals to anything else, that means that even if it is empty, then what you need to do, you need to move on to the next line, or you need to move on to the next count, which is count equals to count plus 1. And you need to keep on doing that until your count value is greater than 9, because the maximum number is given to you in the question, which is 10 non-blank lines. Then you need to set valid as your true. Then you have to do and if and while, and last you have to close file, this file, and it should be returning a valid value and end function. Make sure that the cases you open, you have closed them as well. So do you have any queries in this regarding the loops, regarding the structure?
No, sir.
Matlab, if you have a question like this, so do you even have a question in your mind that which loop you are going to apply?
Yes, sir.
Because this is the reason that I have taught you that the question A part B says that returns true if the file is valid, otherwise returns false. It is already stated if, then, else, and if. The second point is that it is a question of text file. One thing is common: open file, close file, end of file. So if you have similar things into your question, you are going to have the same thing. Any questions?
No, sir.
अगर पेपर में इस तरह का आता है टेक्स्ट फाइल, तो हमेशा यही लूप लगेगा बेटा. इतनी प्रैक्टिस करने के बाद आपको इतना अंदाजा तो हो जाना चाहिए ना कि इस सवाल में जो ये पूछा जा रहा है तो मैं ये ऐड करूंगा. जैसे अगर फाइल हैंडलिंग की बात हो रही है, टेक्स्ट फाइल की बात हो रही है, तो क्या करूंगा मैं? ओपन फाइल, क्लोज फाइल, वेल नॉट ईओएफ. यहाँ पे कंडीशन उन्होंने खुद ही दी हुई है, तो इफ देन एल्स एंड इफ लगा दिया. For example, further modules are defined as follow: check line and count error. Count error, it is called to check the project file gym01 program.txt and to stop if more than 20 errors are found. Write the pseudocode statement for this call. Do you know the correct answer? Do you know how to call them? For calling any of the program, you are simple going to write call, then you are going to write that name of the area which you want to call errors, and what it is required to check the project file which is gym01. So you are going to write it right here, gym01 program.txt, inverted commas close, and stops if more than 20 errors are found, comma 20. So this is the way how you are going to call it. 20 means 20 के बाद नहीं चलेगा, अगर 20 errors आ गए so it will stop. C part says that write a pseudocode module for count error. Assume check file and check line have been written and can be used in your solution. Check file and check line have been written. Check line and check line and check file has been written, and I'm requested to write your count error. Count error. This is says that now I'm just reading this question, and after that you are going to tell me that which loop I will be applying and how I'm going to solve this. So I'm explaining you the question. First of all, it says that it is going to take two parameters: the name of a project file as a string, the maximum number of errors as an integer. The name of a project file as a string, the maximum number of errors as an integer. Use check file to test the project file, output an error message and ends if the project file is not valid. Calls check line for each line in the project file, count the number of errors, output the number of errors or a warning message if a maximum number of error is received. So can you tell me what is going to be your thought process for this question?
तो फर्स्ट तो ये हमारे पास प्रोसीजर है.
What are the parameters?
पैरामीटर्स हमारे पास दिस फाइल होगा, लाइक फाइल देन स्ट्रिंग होगी, और फिर हमारे पास एरर्स जो इंटीजर होंगे.
Okay, good. What are you going to declare
हम
here?
हम काउंट को डिक्लेयर करेंगे और हम
Okay,
एरर्स को डिक्लेयर करेंगे
ठीक
और
है.
लाइन को
Which loop you are going to apply here?
इफ देन एल्स.
Okay, and one more.
एंड लेट मी repeat until the condition is met.
Okay, that's excellent. That's accurate. What are you worrying for?
एक्चुअली मुझे इम्प्लीमेंट करना नहीं आता, लाइक क्वेश्चन के हिसाब से इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं होगा मुझसे.
इम्प्लीमेंट के लिए सबसे पहली लाइन लिखो यहाँ पे. पहली लाइन क्या आएगी बेटा सबसे पहले?
प्रोसीजर.
हाँ, पहला स्टेप. Procedure. What is the name of the procedure? The name of the procedure is count errors. That is going to take what in your parameter? This file. What is the data type of that? This is going to be of strings. What is the second parameter that you have to take? Maximum number of errors. You can take max errors as your integers. This is your first part. Second part is your declaration part. Declaration में आपने ही मुझे बताया कि क्या क्या declare करना है. Error count, this error, and declaring this line as a string. This is your second part. Now, in your third part, you are going to start the loop, which is if then else and if that it says that use check file to test the project file, output an error message, and if the project is not valid, calls check line for each line in the project file. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to work on the check file. I'm going to use a simple loop, which is if check file of your this file is equals to false. That means you are requested to output that program file is not valid. Else, you are going to open your file for read. This is a simple loop that was stated into the question. And since it is a question of file handling, now I have opened that. The second area is that I need to call check line for each line in the project file, and I need to count the number of errors. So now I'm going to implement a loop here that you said that is it is going to be of repeat. And I'm going to write your read file, this file, this line, this error should be with your value of check line or check line के अंदर आएगा this line. Now, if this error is not equals to 0, then error count is equals to error count plus 1, and if and it should be keeps on going until your error count is greater than your maximum errors, or you should not reach the end of your file and your file name is this file. And just in case if the end of file is reached and it is false, that means you have to output a warning message if the number is exceeded, or like for example too many errors, else output there were itne times of errors, which is a variable and your statement. And if close file, this file, and if end procedure. So in part C, I'm explaining it back again. You should know that how to write that. The first thing is your procedure part. You have done that yourself. You have done this yourself as well. It was stated into the question that you need to check for it. If it is false, then output file is not real. Like this one, using check file to test the program, outputs an error message and ends if the project file is not valid. This is done. The fourth one, it says that false checkline for each line in the project file and output the number of errors. So even before outputting any notepad file, the first thing you need to do is that you need to open file. This should be into your you should be able to memorize that whenever you have a file handling question, the first thing you need to do is that you need to open file. Then following that, you need to start it by working on your repeat loop. That means that if you are reading your file, this file of this line and this error is check line this, and if it is not equals to 0, that means that you have a number of error, and you should be doing that even if that value is increased by maximum error or you do not reach the end of the file. And just in case if you reach the end of the file, you should be adding this false. So अगर तुम्हारे पास फाइल हैंडलिंग है तो ये जो टर्मिनोलॉजी है ये लाजमी लगेंगी. ये देखो, दिस इज एन एंड ऑफ फाइल, दिस इज रिपीट until, this is read file, this is an if loop, this is an open file. And don't even forget that after opening the file, you have to work on that closing as well. So this is how you do it. So do you have any queries in this, that sir, how I am still able to do that?
No, sir, I don't have any queries. नहीं, इसमें कोई इशू नहीं है.
तो बेटा ये समझो कि मैंने अभी तुम्हें किस तरह से ब्रेक कर करके बताया है. तुमने हर सवाल का रट्टा नहीं लगाना है, तुमने उसको समझना है कि करना कैसे है. सवाल खुद ही बता रहे हैं कि कौन सा लूप मुझे इसके ऊपर लगाना है. लास्ट पार्ट भी कर लेते हैं. मॉड्यूल चेकलाइन इंक्लूड्स द चेक फॉर सिंटैक्स एरर. टू एग्जांपल ऑफ सिंटैक्स एरर दैट कैन नॉट बी डिटेक्टेड फ्रॉम एग्जामिनर सिंगल लाइन आर दीज इन्वॉल्विंग सिलेक्शन एंड आइटरेशन. गिव टू एग्जांपल्स. अब कौन कौन से ऐसे हैं एरर्स हैं जो ये डिटेक्ट नहीं कर सकता. तो अगर आपके पास किसी भी किस्म का डेटा टाइप एरर आ जाता है, फॉर एग्जांपल assigning an integer value to string, तो ये बेटा डिटेक्ट नहीं होगा. या आप ये भी लिख सकते हो यहाँ पे इनकरेक्ट पैरामीटर्स और यूजिंग आइडेंटिफायर्स बिफोर डिक्लेयरिंग दैट. अगर इनकरेक्ट पैरामीटर्स दे दिए या ऐसे आइडेंटिफायर यूज कर रहे हैं जो आपने डिक्लेयर नहीं करे, तो दीज टाइप्स ऑफ एरर कैन नॉट बी डिटेक्टेड.